I'm a little bit worried about how my current wife is going to react to this story if it goes. I mean, she knows the story, but.
Well, Susan sent out her email about it. I think the big thing was the change from gluten is now protein. I think that comes from people, because so many people are gluten intolerant, so they're transferring that over to their pets. And so the food companies are like, oh, people don't want to see gluten meal on the label. We better rename that.
Well, yeah, I think, they would tell you that the reason why they're doing it is because corn doesn't have gluten in it technically, but it's that substance that, and they called it corn gluten and corn gluten meal. So they would say we want to be more accurate in terms of calling it protein, but I would say it's not. It's misleading
Yes,
to the consumer.
To the consumer.
Because it's just a happier term. If you see corn protein meal, you're like, oh, okay.
Yay, more protein. Pets need protein.
It's very prevalent in also like human nutrition. You'll see like pea protein and that kind of stuff. So like they're probably just trying to make, that a more agreeable nutrient type. But, I think it's not gluten, but it's more akin to gluten. So I would say that's more of an accurate term, but
the gluten?
I'm not on the committee, so I don't know.
Yeah.
I can't, I don't get to
I wouldn't want to be on a committee.
I know a few brave souls that are, but as you know, how many AFCOs have you been to?
I don't know, 5?
Yeah.
6.
Yep, it's definitely, I tell people, it's a very small group of holistic people there who,
Well, the one that I went to where we literally wasted the whole pet food committee meeting on whether it should be a comma or a colon.
Yep. Sounds about right.
Literally 3 hours of whether it should be a colon or a comma, and we got nothing voted on, nothing accomplished. I pretty much went, well.
Yeah.
A lot of people with nothing to do.
Well, and the main reason I go is obviously it's relevant to my job in terms of how to, go into formulation and just, what's allowed and that kind of stuff. But, I would encourage consumers can go.
It costs $500 to get in the door.
It's $500
to be bored to death.
It's not.
I've been laughed at. I've been booed at. Mm-hmm. I've been ridiculed. I've been chased down. Yeah, it's so much fun.
Yeah.
I've been threatened by, the guy who wanted to kill everybody.
Oh,
at the San Diego one.
Oh, yeah, I remember that now.
Yeah. We actually flew out and then never stepped foot inside the meeting. Stayed in a hotel and never stepped foot in the meeting.
I didn't go for that reason because of the inherent,
because of the threat against all of us.
Yeah. Yep. Yeah, that was interesting. Well, I am very happy because I get to, this year is in Baltimore. So at least I can drive to it. Yes.
We could drive to.
And there'll be, this is great for the video, by the way. I'll be eating a lot of crab. So very excited about that. That's what the people want to know.
I could do that. I like crab. Meat, organs, and dark leafy greens.
Well, you stole mine, so thank you so much for that. I would echo those things, and I would also say from like a home perspective, eggs. Eggs are like nature's multivitamin, and especially for cognitive health and just in general. But I mean, I feed in my dog's diet and total makeup, I think right now he's eating about 4 egg yolks a day. And so that just goes into the total formulation of whatever I'm doing. And for me, if you're looking at, complete imbalance in a real sense, raw milk and eggs are, way up there as well. But I would echo what you said.
You feed your 25-pound dog 4 egg yolks a day?
Mm-hmm.
Interesting.
So
every day?
Let me, it depends. But if I basically have at any given time a default, and then I vary from that default. But here's what that would look like. So my Huckleberry gets 300 calories per meal. So if I feed him let's say I was going to feed him as his base diet, raw food, and then 2 egg yolks. I would take that 300, I would subtract 110 because that's how many calories are in 2 egg yolks. And then I would get 190, and then I would divide that by however many calories are in the food. So then he would be getting, I don't know, 2.1 ounces of food and 2 egg yolks, and that would add up to that 300 number. So that's kind of how I have a scale, and that's how I kind of like, I think the easiest way, it's actually funny because one time Emily, my wife, called me and she was like, how much do I do with this? And I was like, oh, no, that's the fun part. You get to figure it out. And she's like, that is not the fun part. Just tell me how much to do of this thing. For me, the easiest way to do that in add variety with foods like that, or like milk, for example, say milk, I know milk has 20 calories. So if I was doing the 300 and let's say I wanted to do 4 ounces of milk, that would be 80 calories. So I'd do 300 minus 80, and then I could divide that. And so that's kind of a nerd's way to do that, I guess you could say.
So I'm just going to say, we don't all have to be that nerdy.
No, don't. No, please don't, in fact.
Because this is where people get stuck, because they're like, I don't know how to figure that out. I don't know how many calories are in this, and I don't know how to figure out what my pet needs. And so I feed I'm looking at my dogs. I could, if I wanted to get nerdier, I could weigh them every week, but I don't even do that. I look at my dogs, I'm feeling my dogs. I'm like, okay, you're feeling just like a little on the chubbier side. We got to back off a little bit, and then, reevaluate in another week. Or like Forrest is thin. He's very, very, very lean. So it doesn't matter how much I feed that dog. He is so active that I don't think I'll ever have to worry about him becoming overweight. So it just, each dog or each cat is different. And we're feeding 45 animals here. I am not figuring out everybody's calories.
Here's the thing. I would suggest most people just do what is healthy and makes sense and is easiest to do, because the thing about me is, outside of my job, feeding my dog is my hobby. And so it is, if I am like on my own personal time and I'm like, oh, I want to do something fun, or let's say I'm at the office on my computer and I want to take a break or something, I'll work on Huckleberry's like omega-3 to 6 ratio. That's how I get down and party. So most people are not like that. And, that's just typically like my brain I really only think about 4 things: my family, nutrition, the Green Bay Packers, and Marvel superhero movies and comic books. And that's pretty much my entire life and all I care about. So that's why we make products at Green Juju that are easy to use, because I don't expect most people, in fact, when we had our daughter, I remember before we had Maple, I remember thinking like, well, everyone has time to do this part and this part. And I remember really just loving the Green Juju blends after for the first month we had Maple. Because I was like, I don't have time to do anything. Not a single thing outside of this little potato that we need to keep alive. And so I remember thinking to myself like, oh, this is much more convenient than growing sprouts and cutting them up every meal and doing that aspect of it. So don't do as I do. Do as you want to do, I guess.
You just reminded me of a story. I had only been in practice a couple of years, but my office manager invited a bunch of people, the doctors and everybody and their spouses, to come for dinner. And so we're all sitting around the dinner table, and somehow we got on the discussion of what kind of books everybody likes to read. And my office manager's husband said, oh, every night I really get into reading my physics textbook. It's like,
okay.
Yeah, sure. Yeah. That's exactly what I want to read every night. So Billy's reading his nutrition books.
Yes, yeah. And there was actually a point when I first got started. So this is like previous to getting into pet food just in general, like actually working in pet food, because there was a whole journey before that. And I went through the same journey most people do. You start feeding low quality kibble, then you go to higher quality kibble, then you start adding canned food. And I did that same journey. And then, I wish I could tell you what the name of this book was, but it was written by 2 women veterinarians. It was blue. I've never seen it since, but I got it at Whole Foods back in, a million years ago. And it was the first time I said, I can make my own food. This is doable. I can do this. And I was glued to it. And I remember at the time, that's about all I could afford. I was too poor to buy any books. And so every weekend, I would go to Barnes & Noble and just open all the books and take notes and do as much as I possibly. I'm sure they love that, by the way. And not ever buy any of them so I could learn this. But, I had absolutely no money. And at the time, my dog was eating the best I could possibly afford for her, and fresh food and adding things to it. And I was so poor that I could only afford to eat $2 frozen pizzas every night for dinner. That was as much as I could possibly, and I ate that every single night. But Lua always had the best possible diet. And so, it's definitely been a journey, but I think people can, do something at every level. I'm a little bit worried about how my current wife is going to react to this story if it goes. I mean, she knows the story, but one time, Judy, in my early 20s and my more not smart days, I was engaged to a lady, and the last thing she said to me was, "Dogs don't need good food," and so that was a pretty good indicator that was not the person for me in my future. So.
Dogs don't need good food.
So that's a requirement. You got to be with a partner that supports your pet feeding choices.
Yes.
I think
Well,
that's fair.
Yeah.
Well,
yeah.
I made my boyfriend change from kibble to raw.
Yeah, exactly.
Yep. And everybody who comes to work for us, if they're
Yeah.
feeding kibble, they're now feeding raw.